Um, Hello, everyone. Okay, so we're getting going with my stream tonight. I am Jen Drakes, and we are just connecting on a number of different platforms. Thank you so much. Please jump on board if you want to be join me and chat. Let's do that. Today I really want we're almost into year end. Oh my gosh, what are we, like 5 weeks away? 4 or 5 weeks away. And one of the things, I know some of the platforms can't necessarily see me, but for those who can see me, one of the things that I'm certainly talking about and looking at, and I'll speak to you about it in a minute. But the talk today, my stream, is really overall about empowerment into 2023. And when I talk about empowerment, I'm talking about ourselves. How do we empower ourselves? How do we really, for 2022, the theme for me has been about becoming a better person, a better coach, up leveling my mindset, up leveling my resources, my tools to better serve others in the frame of a life strategist, a business accelerator, a master coach. That has been really the theme for me in 2022. And as we start to go into 2023, obviously my thing is to set new a new set of goals for myself, really, a new set of intentions for myself in 2023. And I think that all can be summarized into empowerment. And one for me that for 2023 is all about acceptance. And that's accepting who I am, what I'm all about, not trying to please people, but just, coming forward. And I think I've always tried to do that. And at times, like anybody else, you could be your own worst enemy. And really getting better with that, getting better as I certainly teach my clients, is how to have a voice, how to really embrace who you are authentically. And that's how come this stream is about empowerment. And how do you do that in 2023? How will you do that? What does that mean in 2023 for you? And as we head into that, how can we, as we head into that, how can we um, really set intentions for that, both from tools, from resources, from interactions, from decisions? In 2022, I spoke a lot about decisions and accountability, and the fact that every day we're making decisions. Every day is upon, every day is upon us. We're faced with changes. So how do we really start to embrace all of those realities? So change is inevitable. Everything that we do, all through the day, even from me, speaking now, a minute ago, a change happened, right? So change is always around us. It's always occurring. And in the midst of those changes, we're always making decisions. And I've showed that in my podcast when I talked about all these things. I talked about change. I talked about decision. I talked about accountability in season 3 of my podcast. And I would encourage you to go and see and listen to that podcast, Arrays of Living. And I talked about all those things in our 2022 season 3 because it builds on each other and it builds. And I talked about having something to say and not being muzzled by other people, whether it's in the workplace where it's very common, and around you in your friendship circles and your support circle and your family circle, you know, being assertive, being confident, being clear about you and what you need, and putting the boundaries in place to get those things. These are all things that I teach, but it's also me teaching myself, me, empowering myself, up leveling myself. So when we talk about all of these things, and we start to move into 2023, this is the time to start to think about it. Right now, everybody, the US just had Thanksgiving. And I always call from September to now the thankful season, because you have the Canadian Thanksgiving, you have the US Thanksgiving, then we go into another thankful period as we celebrate the holidays. So I always call this the thankful season. And I think it's an appropriate time for it because it's leading into a new year. And what do we want for that year for ourselves? What has taken place in this current year that sets our intentions for the next year? And I feel that's where we are, with just a mere 4 to 5 weeks away from the new year. We have to start thinking about these types of things. What is going well for us? What's not going so well? Are we fulfilled? Are we not fulfilled? Satisfied, not satisfied, happy, not happy? Like, what are those things for us realistically? And how do we set our intentions going into this new year to start to build out the things we want to start to? One of the things I'm looking at and, really getting comfortable with is the concept of manifesting our intentions and our desires and our dreams and what we see for ourselves in the future. And not yet released, but will be released soon, is a podcast I did about prepping for change. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's really what we're talking about. But when we use the word empowerment, how do we self empower? As I said, one of the podcasts I talked about was something to say. And I think our voices are really an empowerment tool. And if you feel you don't have a voice in your life, then in my mind, you are disempowered, right? You are disempowered. And how do you regain and recapture that power? How do you regain and recapture your voice? And how do we further empower ourselves if you have a voice? I happen to have one. I mean, I podcast, I stream, I'm a content creator, I'm a, life strategist. I have to have a voice. And in empowering my voice, the next step is to empower me beyond my voice. And what do you have? What are your intentions? And one of the things I want to talk about in this first hour of the stream is, when we talk about empowerment, are you in tuned to how others see you? Right? And I think it's a humbling thing to listen to how other people see you. And sometimes you feel they're right, and sometimes you feel they're not right at all. But it's still humbling to stop and think, why do they see that as me? And sometimes it's not, sometimes their view is not necessarily with good intentions, but sometimes it is. But how do you look at how they see you and then start to define and redefine and refine those things in you that you want to change? So, how do you do that? How do you start to look at those things and say, what can I do in 2023 to help me along with that? So, how do others see you? So Think about that for a minute. And as you listen and you formulate how you think people see you, that you can jump on and talk to me about that. And we can explore those things together, because it really is about, being authentic. And empowerment is a being about that. It's not about being superior to others. It's really about you. I always try to say I'm having a you conversation, and even as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking that in what I say, I need to be authentic, and I always try to be, but I'm also human. I'm having human experiences, and I need to check myself sometimes, and that is okay. But it's all about a you conversation. So, how do others see you? Are you in tune to that? Have you ever asked anybody, how do they see you? And I remember being out with others, and someone said to me, "This is the softest I've seen you." And I was like, "What? What does that mean?" They saw me as a tough, like, strong and tough, but they felt that I wasn't soft. And I thought, wow, well, that's an interesting feedback, because that's not how I saw myself. I'm not a hard person. I actually I actually care about others, and I know the world can hit you, and we've all had our hits for sure, and they continue to hit us. The world's getting tougher. It's changing. It has changed, and we are adapting to those changes, especially in post pandemic. So I get all of that, but when somebody sees you as not, it doesn't see that softer side of you, that means you're putting up walls. That means you are, in my mind. So it made me reflect. It really made me reflect. And I continue to reflect and work on those aspects of who I am, because I care deeply about others. I can be a bit of a recluse, in where I love my privacy and I don't mind being by myself. And because those are the times I reflect and I get in touch with myself, and I write capture my thoughts in my writings. So, but I don't, it's humbling when someone tells you that. So, how do others see you? I'm interested to know if people are in touch with how others see them. And I think these are things we need to reflect on to get to our intentions in 2023. Because, if you're in touch with how others see you, and there's aspects of how others sees you that you don't necessarily agree, or that makes you uncomfortable, or makes you think, if that's what I'm portraying, I need to look at that closely. I need to understand, why is that? And I need to know how I can change that in myself. Then that drives your intentions for 2023, or even in the remaining 5 weeks that we have. So, what are your thoughts? And one of the things coming on the platform was, I saw someone speaking about, not setting goals. And I thought it was interesting. I respect their viewpoints on that. But then, what are you striving for if you don't have goals? What are you striving for? And I wish I could have listened to it, but I happen to be going on air as well, so I couldn't stop and listen to it to see their point of view. But that was the name of their broadcast, was "Don't Set Goals." And I thought, I just kind of made me lean my head and think, that would have been something interesting to get their perspective on that. Because for me, as someone that has always set goals for the year, and thrive towards it and see progress as a result of that, it's a little hard, for me, it's a little bit, gives me pause, let me say, to think, how do you then progress and know of achievements if you haven't set goals, and smart goals? I don't mean just setting goals that you're not, that you can't actually measure. I'm talking about setting smart goals and pursuing those goals in some way, shape, or fashion. So I just thought it was an interesting um, perspective, and hopefully there was depth behind the viewpoint for those listening. But I'm someone that say set goals. I'm not saying you have to set 100 goals or huge amounts of goal, but set a couple of goals going into the new year is my viewpoint, because it helps focus you, and where your focus is what you attract. And if your focus isn't there, then you're not necessarily attracting what you want to attract. um so, and you always hear like Tony Robbins and these people talk about your focus. You will manifest where your focus is, and goals helps you to focus. So yeah, anyway, I don't want to digress, but how do others see you? And if you know how others see you, I'd be interested to hear to what degree you're pleased with how others see you or not pleased with how others see you. Um, I know for myself, many people see me as a strong person. I've had people give me feedback, that I've helped them to be bold in their aspirations, and that I see as gratifying, because when we talk about self improvement, when we talk about putting strategies in place for your life, it's really, as I said, a you conversation, and it's about figuring out what you need and how to craft and co create what you need in order to thrive. And we want everyone positively thriving. Certainly, that's what I want for everyone. And I talk about, in order to truly thrive, requires you dealing with stuff harbored inside that may eventually sabotage what I call shites. So when you put your shites out there and you say, I want to deal with them, I want to overcome them, I want to get better and grow as a result of dealing with those things, then we're talking empowerment, and we're talking having, creating this relationship with yourself that puts you at the forefront, so that you become better for everyone around you, and in supporting other people around you. Because if you're only supporting others around you but not supporting yourself, then you're probably running on depleted energy, and you really don't want to do that, because that leads to other cascading things. So, you know, what do you have in mind for yourself in 2023, and how can you start crafting that and putting pen to paper to bring it strongly into your focus, to ensure that you go into 2023 focused on that, right? And I really want to take a moment to look at 2022. One of the things I follow, I like, um, is the Chinese the Chinese year. And 2022 was the year of the tiger. And I just want to talk a bit about what that had signified for the year. And I just want to step onto it, speak about it for a tad, because it helps to, I think one of the things I really wanted to talk about the tiger about is because one of the things the year of the tiger indicated was that it was really striving to put foundations in place that can build on going forward, right? um and that people born in the year of the tiger tend to be powerful, rebellious, dynamic, really fiery, impulsive, and unpredictable. And they typically have strong ethics. So they're very passionate about causes, but how do you thrive in a tiger year, especially the one that we just had, right? Um, and what did you need to put in place according to the year of the tiger? And not everybody necessarily follows this, believes it. And I'm not saying you have to believe it. It's something I always check on every year. Next year, 2023, we will go into the rabbit, the year of the rabbit. Um, and you know, one of the things they said with the tiger year was there's a lot of pent up energy, and people are going to need to express themselves more. And I found that to be pretty true. When you look at how 2022 has been so far, right? You, you know, there was a lot about expression, right? And I think more people, there were more podcasts created, there was more writing going on. Many people I know were trying to write books. I'm writing my second book, well, third book really, and because I did a poetry book, um, and I'm writing my next book, and that continues. So I know lots of people were looking at, fulfilling their dream to write a book. But have you put all the foundations that you need to put down in 2022? And have you put enough down that you can build on in 2023? Or have you just flowed through the year, dealt with things as they came up, and have no game plan? And I think in 2023, we need a game plan, right? I think we do need a game plan. And, I'm about to do my vision board for 2023. I will not let the year end without going into 2023 without a vision board. And I look to the Chinese horoscope in terms of what the next year will be, when it forms, all of those things to help inform my intentions for the upcoming year. That's how I use the Chinese zodiac and horoscope. And it's really just to get a sense of some of, how the year represents the animal, and guidance from that perspective, and not make it a paranoia or um, an overshadowing thing, but just helping it in my perspective when I meditate, when I do all of these intentional things. So, how do you do that? What are you doing to prepare and to empower your upcoming year? And how are you closing out this year? How will you close out 2022? Have you achieved things that you wanted to achieve? Or has your bucket list grown as opposed to, stay the same or or going to a reduction? Are you moving in the way you expected? Are you where you wanted to be? Are you closer to where you wanted to be? These are some of the fundamental reflections that I sit on as the year starts to close out, and I start to plan for 2023, or even whatever year it is, as I plan for the coming year. What are those things that we look at, contemplate, and get into, right? What are those things? And I think it's important that we think about these things. I think it's important to have a bit of a game plan. That doesn't mean that you You have to say, because what I find happens is we have a game plan and we start to focus on that and move on, and new opportunities land or things happen. So the way, it doesn't mean it's moving the way or things come to you as you expect. In fact, I find a lot of times they don't come as you expect, but you do recognize when they come. That's the big difference. You do recognize when they come, and you're able to look at them in the way they need to be looked at, and then to look at your options and make decisions. And that is where I don't know, you start to build a momentum when you go in, at least in a game plan. And one of the things that I talked about in January of 2022 that I've found over the years of doing this is that you start out the year in a theme, and the year closes with its own theme. So you know, for example, 2022, I came into 2022 with the theme of growth. And at the end of this year, I will land on how the year closed out. But it will never close out with the same theme I came in at. It will have evolved and morphed because the journey is doesn't go the way we think it will go. And I've found that it morphs and you end up with an end of year theme that still works with the opening theme, but somehow is differs in some way. And when I do my vision board for 2023 is when I will land and kind of connect the dots to say, oh, the word that my year ended is this. I started out with this one growth, and the year ended in this way, right? And that has worked for me now for umpteen years. And I've always found that I achieve many of my goals, and the ones that I don't achieve has either not proven not to be ideal, or there was a different plan, especially when you surrender to the path and the journey and say, I need to be flexible. So all of these things start to come out, and it becomes very interesting to see how the path moves, and to do that, what I call the flex dance, to be open to that movement, to be open to those kinds of channels and pivots, and just know you're still on the right path, but it may not have evolved the way you thought it would. So I'm just interested in those things. You know, how are you closing out 2022? And if you were to stop for a moment today, at this point in time, wherever you are, whether you're Mountain Time, Pacific Time, Eastern Time, overseas time, when you stop right now and think where you are, would you consider that you're where you wanted to be? Would you consider that you're on the path you want to be on? Would you consider that the year didn't quite go as you had hoped or planned, but it went okay? Or it was a complete disaster and you were hit with all sorts of challenges? I mean, based on the stats and the reports, and if you do your own research, it would seem that people are being challenged this year, whether it's from a recession point of view, an inflation point of view, a job point of view, an education point of view, a transition point of view, a transformational point of view. We've all been hit in one way or another. And one of the things that I do is I'm open to sharing sometimes what just with other people kind of, oh, this has happened to me. And what I'm always amazed at is when you do that, you find end up discovering that many people are going through the exact same thing, sometimes with different circumstances, but the same feeling. And that always kind of reinforces to me just how connected we are. And if you start to talk about it, I'm not going to tell you go and tell your business to everybody. But if you just share some aspects of things, you will find that you have a comrade who can say, I can relate. I can relate. I hear you. That's happening with me as well. And that's a good thing because we tend to stay by ourselves and think that we are the only ones experiencing. And I can assure you through my years and the wisdom I have come into at this stage in my life, that is a falsehood because it's all emotional based. Many of us are experiencing the same things because we're in the same energy field. And our thoughts drive that energy, our feelings drive that energy. We are connected, so we are never alone in the experiences that we have. There's always someone else out there that has experienced the same thing. And it always feels better to know that you're not alone in whatever you might be going through. And I talk about that because when we're hit with our challenges, please don't sit there thinking it's just you. And this year, coming out of the pandemic, coming out from being isolated, we're all grateful to connect. We're all grateful to be outside. We're all grateful, to have those moments of interaction and conversation and all of that. And this is coming from someone who does not mind being by themselves and having some isolation. That, COVID didn't hit me that way because I didn't mind. And even when I was confined with people I didn't mind being confined with, while I know others may not have been. So when you stop and you think about from January to now, how does that sit for you? What do you think about that? How do you feel about it? Are you excited? Are you like, wow, what an amazing year? Are you about, I had my share, you know? And so if depending on where you are in that whole spectrum of possibilities, and I say, what would be your next step or your next steps? What does 2023, what are you hoping to attain in 2023 for yourself? All right. And what decisions do you need to make to up the ante, in 2023? What is your A game? What skills do you need to achieve what you want to achieve? What resources do you need to put in place? What changes do you need to face in 2023? And are you prepared for them, or will they generate fear in you and pause your movement? What does it look like for you? And I want you to start thinking about that, because all of that sums up as empowerment for 2023, right? Which is what we are talking about tonight, right? Empowerment for 2023. So, our empowerment into 2023, what is that? And what will it take? Have you started to think about that? As I've just shared, I will be doing my my vision board before the end of the year to help guide those things, to help manifest, to help drive my focus better. For me, 2022 is all about up leveling, all about enriching who I am from a mindset point of view, from a personality point of view, from a soul connection point of view. Um, these are all the things that we're talking about. And at what point, what did, as I start to think about it, I'm here pausing a bit because I'm thinking about it as I'm speaking, um, and it's all about pausing. It's about not just going through your daily routine without a thought, but it's about pausing every now and then and reflecting a bit. Whether it's a moment at the end of the day to say this is what 2023 or what 2022 looked like for me. What are some of the aspirations that you have? Are you pausing a minute to think about that and say, I've been putting this aside for a long time. I've been postponing this. And so, what does it mean to actually step into those aspirations? I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, was supposed to do something with a loved one, and they never got to do it. So it was a bucket list, really, at that point. And the loved one passed away, and they still didn't get to do it. And then at some point, they made a decision: I'm going to do it. I didn't get to do it with the loved ones, even though it was on our list to do things. And they ended up passing away before we could do it. So I'm gonna go and do it for them and myself. And they did that. And it was one of the most amazing experiences for them. I was so happy for them, to the point that they're now making a life change of changing their location. They're relocating to a whole different country. They feel like they found their home, and they've lived somewhere else for their whole life. But imagine now taking that massive step, and they found their the place they can truly call home, to the point they're relocating to that place and making a whole new life journey for themselves. And what a wonderful thing that can be. So, what are you putting off from doing that has always been there nagging at you? And how can you do things differently for yourself? Are there any of those types of aspirations? Are there things on the bucket list that you need to address? Or will they always just stay on the bucket list and be postponed and put at the bottom of the of the pile because you're so caught up in everybody else's needs that you're not actually addressing your own? When will the time ever be right? And these are the things I want you to start thinking about as the year is ending. What are those things you're putting off that you need to address? And how can you address them? And the way I want to put this out to you, an example for it, and I'll use me always as I'll try and use some of my own um, things that I deal with and address. For those who you can't see me, but one of the things I'm working on is a whole new look and feel for myself, because as I'm up leveling, as I am, you know, addressing that better me, as I'm addressing greater acceptance of me and my mission, and finally accepting that it isn't too big for me. So just step into it, because I'm a big personality. And finally accepting that and really feeling comfortable with it, you'll see I'm changing my look, because one of the things I've always felt comfortable with was this kind of nomad. I said the word gypsy, and someone looked at me and said, "That's not an acceptable word anymore." I didn't know that, but um, I've always felt that from a soul perspective. And I'm aligning those things better now. So I'm going through a different look. I'm going to step into that, play around with it, feel, understand what I feel comfortable with, what I don't feel comfortable with, and step into that new. Really, it's about a new me, but not even a me that I've always felt like, but never really explored. So for 2023, I'm exploring me. I'm exploring the look. I'm exploring, you know, to align the external look of me with the internal feel of me. Does that make sense? Am I like, does that make sense to anyone as I say that? Right? And I'm having fun doing that. So you'll see, you look around at that. I'm having fun with it. I'm playing with it. I'm enjoying the discovery. I'm enjoying the exploration. And I'm going, yeah, it's moving closer. It's closer. And I'll remove the things as I try different things. I'll remove the ones that don't feel comfortable. Right. But I'll step into what is that for me? You know, I love pre pandemic. Let me also share this. Pre pandemic, I loved heels. And I always told my kids it's going to be the hardest discussion with me to talk about as I get older, when I can't wear heels, the 5 inch, 6 inch heels, and I love them. Um, but with the pandemic and being inside for close to 2 years, or 2 years and longer, I actually just visited a place that I discovered I hadn't gone in 3 years because of the pandemic. And because we weren't going out into the workplace and on a daily basis, one of the things that COVID took away from me that I no longer have a desire for are the heels. So, guess what? The kids no longer have to have that discussion with me, because I've self opted to not wear heels. I didn't wear them for close to 2 years, if not 2 years or over. And when I stepped into them, I no longer found them comfortable, and I no longer wanted that for me. I don't mind the big, like the thicker heels. I don't mind those, but definitely the smaller, higher, the stiletto type heels, I'm no longer into it. Not interested. And I have no intention of doing that anymore. I really don't. And so I'm comfortable with that. And as I'm kind of exploring this nomad side of me, this gypsy side of me, and sorry if it's a faux pas to say that word, um, it's even more comfortable. And I don't get me wrong, I tried, I bought some 1 inch or one in it, and I walked around and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Took them off, never wore them. So I'm exploring that side and I'm enjoying that and stepping into this whole new me. And I see we're already in changed times. And you really, we are already in changed times. I personally don't believe we'll ever go back to pre-pandemic times. I could be wrong, and I'm okay if it's proven that I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be predicting it. I'm just saying, when I look at where things are going and where I think things are going, I don't see us returning to the pre-pandemic times. So, we have to adapt and we have to move forward in these new times. And they are definitely, so I say a new year, a new you. And that was the way I started out 2022, one of my Fantastical Living posts, the very first one was a new year, a new you. And see that we're definitely, that is the case because we are already in changed times. So we have to adapt to the way things are. Rian and, um, Dr. Kim, who I train with, she says it's a new world, right? That we're going into. So, change is here. Change is always around us. So let's talk about that. And one of my changes for me was letting go of the heels. And that's okay. And starting to explore, what am I comfortable with? Let's have fun doing it. And I'm enjoying it. I'm actually enjoying the playing around. It's a long time since I've kind of looked at, what new look do I want? As I've said, I love hoodies. I love all of that. I look at hoodie dresses, and I'm just into more, you know, I don't want to be uncomfortable. And that includes my attire, and that includes, and I was never uncomfortable in heels because I would walk 20, sometimes I would walk 20 minutes um, in them. But I don't do that anymore, and I don't wish to do that. So when I'm walking, I'm in very comfortable shoes. And in fact, I invested in these shoes called barefoot shoes that, mirror you walking barefoot. And I love them to death. So, spent the summer getting used to them because it really is like you're walking barefoot, and and getting used to them, and seeing that, any kind of pain in my knee, my hip has gone away as a result. And I don't want it to come back. So I'm enjoying these changes and exploring what it could mean in this whole new look and feel for me. Um, and I'm just wondering for you, what does that mean for you? Like, what things are you looking at changing about yourself, or what things have you discovered through the pandemic and going into post pandemic that you want to explore about yourself? What does closing out 2022 means for you? When you think about how others see you, what do you accept to be factual and what do you think are not factual, or what it makes you uncomfortable, and you still want to reflect upon it? You're saying, I don't want people to see me that way. How can I change how I'm, you know what vibe I'm putting out, and what rhythms I am putting out, and how do I change that? I had someone say to me the other day, when I look at your aura, I see so many colors. I see, you know, just great colors coming out in sometimes what could be a very monotone space. And I found that to be a really good compliment. And I like that they saw that as part of, the spirit I bring. And but then there's, the one I spoke about earlier where people say, you you know you don't come across as, you come across a bit stern or not soft. And I'm like, really? So I would like to change that. I don't want to come across that way. That's not how I think. Maybe I'm protecting myself because I care too much. And, sometimes people don't live up to your expectations and they end up, hurting you, and you just don't want to be, you don't want to deal with that. So maybe I put up a wall. I didn't think I did, but that's okay. If someone commented on that, then that's something I want to change. So how do I do that? How do I work on that? And those are the things that I'm exploring, and I intend to continue to explore in 2023 in my own you conversation. And I share it with you. And I urge, please jump on as a guest and talk to me about what goes through your mind as you're listening to me and thinking about kind of what, where things are for you as well. Um, and And just, what thoughts come through your mind? Are you thinking about that? If you're in the States and you just went through your Thanksgiving, that's a time to think about, what am I grateful for? What am I thankful about? And as you kind of went off your list, did it give you any insights into closing out 2022 and going into a new year? As I talk about, some of the things that came up in, looking at the year of the tiger, and still want to go along that, um, what were some of the predictions that were made for the year of the tiger? Did they pan out? Did they not pan out? Um, you know, what would you think of? What are some of the things that were said? And I know sometimes the Chinese horoscope goes on, like, goes specifically speaks to, say, um, the actual animal, if you were born in that year, and what it could mean, right? Like, speaking to those that are deemed to be dragons versus those that are deemed to be um, rats and things of that nature, right? But on a generalized theme, like, there was one that said, promises a year full of love, adventures, and creative um, comprehension, right? They said it was favorable for lovers, right? So maybe some people, those that got married, would agree. Um, so it's just interesting to see some of the general um, predictions, right? And see to what degree do you feel that is exactly, some of those things panned out and some didn't pan out, right? Um, and did it generally hold up? These are the times I look at these things, right? Um, and this is my time to reflect on those things and just get a sense for it, and then go from there, right? And just look at those things. So it was the year of the water tiger, was 2022. Um, and they had things like, financial growth, um, implementation of large scale plans, and passionate relationships. And I actually can agree with that. Um, there'll be positive changes career wise for a few, and others may have to face hardships. That was true, right? So it's just to look at it and kind of say, on a general scale, did it pan out, and did it not pan out? So depending on what year you were born, you may want to go and just look and see what the year of the tiger meant for you specifically, as that animal, that animal, from a birth perspective, and see to what degree. But this is the time when I start to look at all these things, and and that's the way I close out a year and go into a new year. So not only would I look at what it meant for, was predicted for me, and then see to what degree it panned out, didn't pan out, and then look at what the upcoming year deems, so that I can then start to put my intentions around certain things, and not to make it something I check every month. Definitely don't. I check into it on the beginning of the year, and I check into it at the end of the year, and I might do a checkpoint halfway through the year. but not always. But definitely the beginning and the end of the year, because I want to close out the year in a certain way. So that's kind of where I go. And you may want to do, maybe you have the other traditions you follow to close out the year, or maybe you're too busy preparing for the holidays and Thanksgiving and all these other things that you just roll into the end of the year. And one of the things I will say, I don't believe in resolutions. I think they're a complete waste of time. I do believe in setting goals, really very specific smart goals, and help those let those goals help to keep you focused throughout the year. And I do checkpointing throughout the year, and then my big checkpoint runs from September into the end of the year. So that's how I look to get through the year and make sure I'm staying focused, on track, and all of that. Now in 2023, one of the other big things that I've put on the table is to pause a moment to have a little bit more fun. I always have fun in my, doing my podcast, all this stuff. I do enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm definitely more fulfilled than I was, you know, 3, 4 years ago, because I'm of my pivot and because I'm on the right path now. And I just want, you to think about, are you on the right path, not on the right path? So, this stream is really about how will you empower yourself for 2023 to thrive more, to move in the direction you are, to maybe expand what you're doing now. If you're on the right path, like I am, what more can you do? Uh, I want to definitely um, expand the number of interactions I have, and number of people I serve and help. I want to expand that even more in 2023, um, and just expand the foundations I've laid for 2022. Expand on those in a much bigger way, and grow, because my focus is all about growth, and I want to work with those who want to grow as well, right? Um, so there you have it. So are you thinking about all those sort of things as we edge into the year and across this time frame? I think I said, actually, I'm going to check. Hold on a minute. I'm going to check and see to what degree, how many weeks we have left to the end of the year. I really want to check that. So I'm just checking right now. Just give me a sec. So I have five. It's 5 weeks. Yep. So we have 5 weeks before the end of the year. So what will you do then? How will you close out the year? And I'm starting this now because I want to just kind of lay the seed, and then you take it from there and see what you will do, right? You take it from there and see what you will do. And for me, I have two more streams before the end of the year, which is pretty cool. And um, I'll start to nurture some more greater thoughts as I do those streams as we go into the year end, and really encourage you um, to really have concrete aspirations for yourself. and really embrace nurturing yourself, growing yourself, and any endeavors that you have under you. Really start to look at it. Maybe start to look at your bucket list and say, what do I need? What can I get done from that bucket list? Right? Because I always say, if your bucket list is massive, then it really means you're not putting yourself first. And you hear all the coaches and the messages coming out to put yourself first. Jillian, thank you for that support. I appreciate it. And what how do you put yourself first? What do you, even small steps? I'm not saying to, but even to make small baby steps to start putting yourself first. Because what I'm always coaching and telling my clients is that, and you hear it all the time, you like, I'm just, you know, coaches are always telling you this, is that it's not selfish, but you have to put yourself first and fill your cup and make sure that cup of you is overflowing, so you have more to give other people. If you're trying to give other people from a depleted cup, you're putting yourself into health situations. It's really having cascading impacts that you don't want to deal with, namely health and wellness and all of these things. So what can changes can you make if you're in the bucket where you're not putting yourself first? What can changes can you make? What small changes can you make to positively change that and start to put things in place, namely boundaries and things in place to help you thrive? What can you do? So I've got Jillian joining in. Hey, Jillian, how are you?
Hello.
How are
Good.
you, girl? You're good?
Good. I'm good. I heard you talk about putting yourself first and it's not selfish, and I'm like, I gotta add something to this. That's truth right there.
Oh, no, it is. I try always to be that way. But tell me your thoughts on that.
I think that a lot of people have been conditioned that if they put themselves first, and not in an overly selfish way, but in
Mm-hmm.
just a grounding way, like you ground yourself, knowing that like if you can't fill your cup, how can you fill someone else's cup, right?
Exactly.
I've I've done a lot of like trauma response and what's it called when you like right when you get to like first kind of like I don't want to say like first responding, but like
Mm-hmm.
things like that, right? And being someone who helps others,
Right.
it can be very draining. And if I don't have that self care, right? If I don't like do something for me to that fills my cup,
Mm-hmm.
I can't help anybody as well as I could, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you can, especially, so let me say this, and then I want to know what you think of it. Especially
Yeah.
when you are a coach and you're working with other people and they have their own, what I call shites. I don't know if you've followed me before. One of the things I have is in, and I write it in my book as well, is stuff harbored inside that eventually sabotages you.
Oh
And
yeah.
I call them shites, which is what the acronym stands for. If you are coaching people on their own shites and you're pulling from your energy to that, and you haven't filled your cup, you're draining yourself.
Oh, a 1,000%, because a lot of people, they need that support, they need that love,
Hmm.
and it can be very draining if you're constantly pouring them, but you're not pouring into yourself.
Exactly. And I
Exactly.
was glad that you mentioned grounding, because that's something I do every morning. Is
Hmm.
I ground, and I'm even trying to now add it to my evening routine to ground some more in the evening, and
Hmm.
just fill my energy so that I have the energy to do what I need to do, not only for myself but for others as well. And I want people, especially going into 2023, to become so conscientious and connected with themselves, or at least make a commitment to connect with themselves on a greater level. And how could that play out for them depending on what's going on in their lives, right? And to
Hmm.
start to think about it now, because I think far too often the new year comes, and people, I'm not going to talk about resolutions because I don't support resolutions, but far too often the year starts and people try to do catch up in January and February and go, oh my God, the year's here, the holidays are all over. What does it mean for me? And I'm saying my teachings are to try to do it in the fall thankful season, I call it, from September to now is the thankful season. Try to use that thankful season to start to not only look at your thankfulness, plan out the things that you thrive for, and to have a game plan going into the new year. And that's what I'm trying to teach. So let me know some of your thoughts on that. Um, and I
Oh,
take it
oh
you're a
yes.
coach as well. So what are your thoughts?
That is 100% what I would. I've been wanting to tell people. So, 2020 to 2021, I was I'm a Marine, and I was sitting on a field op, and I had a lot of time to think to myself. And I had gotten out of standards. I was
Hmm.
about 20 pounds overweight, and I wasn't happy with myself. I was looking at all these old photos of when I was like thin, young, cute. And not that I still wasn't, but I wasn't where I wanted
Hmm.
to be, right?
Exactly.
It was in December, right, the thankful season, and
Hmm.
I was like, you know what? As soon as I get off of this field op, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm just going to better myself. And it is so much easier when you start these
Ex-
goals in the December season. So
hmm.
when it comes to January, you're already doing it. It's already second nature, and you don't have to think about it. And I fell
Exactly.
off of it around June because a lot of life happened.
Yeah.
But what if I didn't? You know what I'm saying? And where would I be today if I didn't get off? If I had stuck with it, right? I'm not.
Hmm.
You gotta learn to grow, but I don't beat myself over it. I don't beat myself up over things,
No, and I
right?
would encourage you not to, because you achieved quite a bit even up to June, because I can tell you that the people that don't start in the thankful season and start in the thing only last the first 2 weeks of the year,
No,
right?
no, serious. Yeah, and that's why I agree with you. I don't really believe in resolutions. I
Hmm.
believe in like habit changing, because that's the thing. If you're like, oh, I just want to do this for like, it's all about like intention, right? If you're like,
Exactly.
right, and like I'm only gonna do this. Like people have this cognitive idea of like I'm gonna do this in January, right? But they
Hmm.
know deep within themselves this isn't gonna last, right? And then they're back to
Right.
where they started. But if they start in the thankful season and they're like actually real and they have that impact like I did, I was
Hmm.
like, I gotta change. I am not happy, right? I'm not where I want to be, right?
Right.
Physically, and they start making these changes for real. And I'm not going to diss anyone who decides that they follow through in January.
Hmm.
I'm not bringing those people down, right?
Yeah.
They take those goals and like, but if they just want to start because oh it's the new year, I'm just going to start something new, that's not really going to last. You have to have like an epiphany. You have to get to
Hmm.
that low point and be like, I need to change because I want to change for whatever reason. And it does start with having like confidence and grounding. And I wanted to say also that grounding, I think it's the most important in the evening because throughout the day you're exploring energy
Hmm.
with others. You're giving, especially if you're a caretaker, or even if you're just like not a caretaker in a sense of like there's a coach or some sort of crisis response. That's
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say. Somebody like that. But grounding in the evening for anybody who does does any type of work. If you're
Right.
working or not working, grounding is so important in the evening to kind of take all this static energy
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back. I work with radios, and when we ground our radios, we put, the copper rod in the ground, we put
Yeah.
salt water in there, we're able to communicate better.
Yes.
Like, all of that energy goes into the ground, but all the good energy goes out to transmit and receive. And that's, as people, that's what we need to do, is ground. We have to ground
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Absolutely. And it was part of
Ground.
my, and I have to tell you, Jillian, it was part of my up leveling this year. It's only this year that I started grounded. I want to be honest about that.
That's
And it's
okay.
part of my up leveling, because I said 2022 was all about, just being a better, um, moving forward in a whole different way than I had before, and just accepting the way forward to be a better coach, to be a better, in service, much better, more strongly than I was before. And I started grounding early in the year, and I have now been, and it wasn't, don't think it was easy getting into grounding, because it really, you have to make it part of your routine. And
Oh, you do.
so I ground early morning, because I'm an early morning riser. I get up between 3 and 4 every morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm an early morning riser. And the reason too is because I love, my favorite time of the day is the handover from night to morning. So to see the sunrise, to see that handover take place, is like, it just fuels me. So I ground at that time, and in that way. But now one of the things I'm trying to put in place is to ground at night. So I'm really glad that you gave me your thoughts on that, because I'm only now trying to put that into place as well as a habit.
Yes, self-care and grounding at night. So, and for the Marine Corps, I'm a sexual assault victim advocate. And when I was
Okay.
on the course, I mean, talking about sexual assault is a very, very heavy thing, right?
Mhm.
Doing it for 40 hours that week. And one of the requirements that they said, or one of our parts of our homework, was to go home and do some sort of self-care.
Mhm.
Whatever that self-care is, if it's going for a run, if it's working out,
Right.
if it's, meditating, whatever it is, hard moving, something to fill your cup up.
Mhm.
And it really did help me. So when I actually got out on in a metaphorical sense, out onto the streets and actually helping people and having clients
Right.
that have been through something as horrific as sexual assault, it really built that muscle of self-care. And you don't have to be like in a crisis response type of person to practice self-care in the evenings, but if you're, a kind, loving person, you're always giving. Self-care is the most important thing to do at night to fill that cup up for the next
Mhm.
day. But I haven't thought about grounding in the morning, but I think that's perfect, because again, I told you, like a radio, you have to ground a radio in order to transmit and receive better, to
Right.
have better communication. Um, and so grounding in the morning, I think, is also a beautiful practice. I've also grounded when I've been through something, like going to therapy, right? And it really shook me up talking about some really heavy stuff. I would
Mhm.
ground right after that, because my emotions were all over the place.
Yeah, and I think when you during the day, depending on if things aren't going right, it's good to stop and ground again. But I find, because I do it in the morning, I find I don't need to, that my day actually goes better. I actually find if I miss grounding, I am more susceptible to unexpected disturbances, is the way I would
Mm.
say it. But when I ground, I find it doesn't happen.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, I find it literally doesn't. And I also have found that if I if I miss grounding, from, let's say, something distracts me, or pulls me in a different direction, and I miss grounding, which is why I like the morning, because I'm by myself. It's easier to make it. But let's say I get distracted for whatever reason and I don't ground. I find I'm susceptible to those ups and downs in the day. And then when I stop and I ground, they stop. And
That,
some of the things just fall away. I don't know. Like, I just find it works. And I know I was told that from, my own coach that's guiding me and up leveling me. And but I found that it actually worked. So it'd be interesting to see what you find if you ground in the morning, to see how if your day goes better.
Yes, I a lot of times, like almost every night for a for about a year or two, I like to have a guided meditation as
Mm-hmm.
I'm falling asleep, as I'm going to sleep. I'll listen. My favorite guided meditation is by Alan Watts. Listen,
Okay.
and you can find it on Spotify. You just type in "Listen," Alan
Mm-hmm.
Watts. Somebody had taken his talks and made it into a guided meditation,
Right.
and that for me is what I would listen to after therapy session, or if again, like you said, like something just like a ride comes and I'm just feeling a certain type of way.
Right.
I feel like I'm pretty resilient, but if something really shakes me up and I'm feeling if I'm kind of starting to go internal,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll ground. But I had never thought about doing that in the morning. So you're right. I should try and see how that works for
Yeah,
me.
try it and let me know. I'd be really interested to see. But that's what I've found. And as I said, I went into it for the first time this year. And so I was trying it and seeing, okay, what's the difference? And I found it was so phenomenal. That's why I'm now made like it's now a habit, right?
Mhm.
I've now made it part of my routine. But one of the things before, and if you, because you have a minute left, if you want to jump back on, that's fine too.
Oh,
One of
I'd
the
love
things,
to.
I want to say before you go though is when we talk about one of the things I found that you've called out, and I really want to make it pointedly clear, is that when you did the things you did to lose the weight and to go after things, I want to call out that what you showed is that you did it for yourself.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Exactly. And I want people to understand this doesn't work if you don't do it for yourself. It's really hard to stick to these types of things if you're doing it for somebody else. And it's also hard for me. I try not to get into the buddy buddy system of doing these things, because then I find when one person gets demotivated, it impacts you.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make sure I set these intentions for myself and go after
I'm
them
gonna
for
come back.
myself. Yeah, come back and jump back on, Jillian. But so I want to speak about that. Here she comes. Um, so I want to speak about that because I think that's how we set ourselves up. I think that's how we set ourselves up for failure sometimes, by doing this buddy buddy up and not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that if the buddy is not as committed as you are, or for any reason falls away, it really does have an impact on your mindset and your commitment to continue for yourself. So me personally, I've had people say to me, "Would you like to hook up and let's go to the gym together?" And I say to them, "Thanks, but no thanks. Please don't take this the wrong way, but
Mm-hmm.
I need to go for myself. And if I see you there, that then we can but I'm not going to go
Mm-hmm.
with the intention that we're always doing this together, because I've found over the years, part of my wisdom is that people then fall away and it really impacts your mindset, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. So that's I just wanted to call that out, that people really need to do it for themselves.
And I think it's funny that you say that. So, here's the key if you want to do that. So
Hmm.
I actually started that way. So Marines, he wanted to go to the gym because he was kind of one of those smaller guys, like a little more scrawny, and he wanted to gain weight through muscle and whatnot. Which I'm like all about that. It was perfect timing for me,
Hmm.
and I didn't really have a workout, so I was like, whatever you're doing, I'm doing it. And we really got into the habit. Like every day after work, we would go again. But the key motivation, the key in
Hmm.
all of this is that I was motivated by myself to get in shape for me. He eventually fell away, but I continued to go. So that the key is you can't be reliant on that
Exactly.
other person. You cannot be 100% put all your trust, faith, and confidence in that other person, even no matter how much they say.
Hmm.
If eventually they start to fall off.
Yeah.
Again, no judgment. Things happen. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
It's just a way, and I respect that they do that. I just found for me, especially when you get into the habit of like we meet and we go to the gym every Thursday at 6 and I'm there, ready, waiting, and then I get some kind of notification they won't be coming. You're like, oh my gosh. It's not that I leave. I do the thing, but it's just I just don't want that anymore, right? Like I don't have I always say I don't really have a weight issue anymore because I've worked on my eating, worked on my exercise, and all that. So I can control and manage it really well. But it took years, right? It took years
Mhm.
to adapt your eating and your health routines to what you need. And I think everybody needs to do it for themselves and first of all figure out what works for them and doesn't work for them, and then
Mhm.
apply that and just be really independent because they're doing it for themselves, right? Uh,
Yes, yes.
and
And I had this mindset. It's like no matter if he's there or not, I'm going. I'm doing it if he's
exactly.
here or not. And when you have that, it's fun to have that person there. But if they're like, "Oh, my kid is sick, I can't show up. I'm
Hmm.
sorry," which is a very reasonable explanation. But
Yeah,
you're like, you're not disappointed. You're like, okay, you're taking it in
exactly.
stride. You're taking it
Ex-
in stride. Or they're like, "Hey, I'm super sore from yesterday. I'm sorry, I can't show up. I just can't be there." You're like, "Okay, cool. I'm still gonna do my thing." And then
exactly.
maybe the next day they're like, "Oh, I'm back. I'm ready to go." And you're like, "Cool, thanks. I love your company. I love your energy." But you cannot rely. I know this sounds really bad, but you cannot rely. When at least we're just talking about the gym, right? Talking about the gym.
Hmm.
But if let's say someone is just as motivated as you are, and you go for years with this person, right? Let's say you're just like
Hmm.
the gym bros, and you're constantly going, and they have built that reputation of being reliable and doing whatever, right?
Right.
Then when they have to be like, "Hey, I have to take a rest day," um, even though I already have a rest day built into my workout plan, that today is just not it. I fell and I sprained my ankle or something, right? Then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's cool. You've earned that trust that they're going to come back. But it's so hard to find that, especially if somebody who's just starting to get into working out. They haven't built that the reps and sets, right? They haven't built that
Exactly.
function.
And they haven't necessarily always figured out what they like because like me, I like hit programs at the gym, right? And they can be intense, right? But I think a person has to go for a bit and figure out what routine they like or what programs they like to
Mm-hmm.
get into it. And if you're in the if yours and they're trying to figure out theirs, that might not be the ideal mix. You know what I mean? So I always tell them if I see you at the gym, I have no issues. We'll hang, we'll get into our own routines and stuff. But I just don't want it to be that buddy system because I just find you're exposed that to possibly not be as committed or to impact your commitment, and I don't like that. But let's switch gears a minute. I'm going to ask you that
Yes.
our stream today is empowerment in 2023. What does that look like for you? What is your empowerment? Like, what are some of the things? Like, do you set goals for yourself?
I do, and I haven't in a while. I've been kind of just. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But goals that I have set are like getting into shape is definitely a big one, especially
Mm-hmm.
being a Marine. You have to be physically fit. You have to be within a height and weight standard.
Right.
But for me, it's like I think just thinking it out loud, right, is something I've been working on for a while. Is setting good boundaries with people. And how do you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you distance yourself from a toxic person or situation and able to say no? And that's so hard for a lot of people and myself, is knowing when to say no and when is it in yourself, like in your self interest, not in a
Mm-hmm.
negative way, but like protecting your emotional well being, right? And
Right.
not overextending yourself. I think a lot of us have kept saying yes because we want to people please, and that's something I have learned is empowering when you're able to say, "Sorry, I can't do that for you, but I have a friend who can,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you still want to help them out, but you're like, "I'm not the guy to do that, but I know somebody else who can, or a resource that's better equipped than myself."
Mm-hmm.
That's something I have learned that's helped empower me And another empowerment that I have learned is, what do I have to lose,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why would I stop myself from a new experience or adventure? And accepting failure, because a lot of people think of failure is just like, oh, I don't want to fail, and I'm like, well, then you're never going to learn. You're going to stay the same. And why do you want
Well,
to stay the same? And getting to those things.
so what I can tell you, one of the things for me is I literally strike the word fail from my vocabulary because I see it, I replace it with learnings. So
Yes.
I don't know why we keep using this word. I think there's no such thing as failing. I think you have to try, and when it doesn't thing, you keep trying again, because that's all that it's all about, is trying. It just might be the way you're doing it is not the ideal, and by trying you find a new way, you know what I mean, and you adapt and so on.
Yeah.
So it really is learnings. And I just think it's a societal word that we keep using, that just is a negative setup to make you feel like crap when you know when
Mm-hmm.
things don't work out you think the way you think they would. And I think I earlier, you might have heard me say, where I said the journey I'm on has not gone out in the way I thought. Every year I go into it with goals, and the goals get achieved, but they don't necessarily get achieved in the way I expected.
Mm-hmm.
That's not
Yeah.
fail. That's not failing. That's called what I call the flex dance, is to say, stay focused on what you're thriving for. Look at all the things that come into your path, assess them, make some decisions, and you might find that you actually achieved the goal, but not in the way you thought you would have.
Yeah. And they say the best, like, plans made are mice and men. What I'm trying to
Exactly.
say.
Yes, yes. Right?
And when you accept, hey, so working with planning, I've done a lot of planning for things. Is you'll have a plan of how like you have everything set up, everything's good to go, and then this person can't support you, and like the resources falls
Hmm.
through, or the funds you think you had aren't
Yeah.
there, or like there's a piece of a procedure that you didn't even know it that existed, and
Hmm.
now you have to go. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a plan go 100% the way that you thought it was. It's impossible. And when
Exactly.
you're real, and when you're realistic, like, I have a plan, but who knows if it's actually going to work. And when you have good contingencies, and when you accept that this probably isn't going to go the way I think it will be,
Hmm.
then you're going to be successful no matter what you do.
Exactly. And that's, so from my perspective, it's you you've refused to, you've made a decision not to learn when you are so caught up in this concept of failing that you don't even try.
Yes,
Right?
yes, because I don't want to fail. And like you said, it's not failing; it's learning. And I think, like, Michael Jordan, he was like, if I never failed, then I wouldn't be the person who I am today.
Exactly. And he never finished a session, his training, without being able to throw 500 hoops each and every training. So he used to do
Know that?
500 plus. While other people left the train, would do finish their time in training, go, he'd be still there, and he would never leave till he does. So repetition is how you perfect things, or how you get to excellence. And I think
Oh,
in 2023, we're in a world where it's all about excellence, right?
yes,
If we don't achieve excellence, we're at risk, because the world is moving so fast, technology is moving so fast, that we have to look to be the most excellent we can be as a human being and as an individual. And that starts with self-care, self-awareness, and empowering ourselves in a meaningful way based on what we hope to or aspire to be, right?
yes. I'm happy you brought up with the repetition. So, um, I started playing piano when I was in second grade, and I picked up trombone in the fourth grade. And
Hmm.
one of the things my mentors taught me is 1,000 hours of something will make you good, but 10,000 hours will make you a professional.
Hmm.
And so it really, no, seriously, like, you gotta practice whatever you want to do. It all comes
Absolutely.
down to reps and sets, reps and sets. And I say say that because we say that in the report a lot.
No,
Get
you're
perspective.
absolutely correct. And some things I'm going to, and just so I want to teach you a couple of things. So first of all,
Yeah.
fear for me is face everything and rise.
Okay.
Okay. No for me is next opportunity.
Oh, I love
Okay.
that.
So think
Yes.
about those things for the next time, that when you know, especially you say you have you're teaching yourself or have learned to improve in saying no. Don't think
Mm-hmm.
of it as no, a refusal. Think of it as no to a person, to tell them next opportunity. The fact that I say no doesn't mean the door is closed forever. It simply means that the timing and all of that does not work for me.
I love that next
Yeah.
opportunity,
And
and I
even
think
when
that
you hear no, turn it into next opportunity.
yes, and I think I've had that thought, but I
Hmm.
the way you articulated that was so beautiful. Next opportunity, not just for me, but for someone else. But
Exactly.
and
Right.
like I said, if I can't help somebody, I try to give them another
Hmm.
opportunity to reach whatever goal they were trying to achieve.
Exactly. Right. And certain things have to be in place, like
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole process of questions to ask yourself when someone answers something of you. I teach a whole series of questions you ask, and depending on how the answers to those questions will tell you and guide you when you need to say no versus not say no. Right. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
just give an example, because I don't, you know, I'm not here to give my whole teaching, but one of the examples is never do anything with a bad heart.
Oh, 100%.
Exactly. So if someone's asked something of you and you honestly, it's not in your heart to do it, I don't care how hard it is or not, it is best to say no. You know why? I don't want the universe upset at me.
Mm-hmm. I'm about to time out. Do you want me to come on, or do
Yeah,
you want me to?
yeah, sure. Jump back on. I enjoy talking to you, and I think there's more we can talk about. So absolutely.
I'll leave and come right back.
Okay. So does
I'm
that
back.
make does yeah, I know. Thanks for joining back. But does that make sense? What I say is that, everything we think and everything that we do, we put out into the universe. And I strongly believe by the universal laws, we're all connected, right? So,
100%.
exactly.
Yes.
So I never want to put anything, less than authentic out there. So efforts, I really don't feel it in my heart it's the right thing to do, I won't do it. And that leads to a no. And I also heard Oprah. I listened to a lot of um, her speeches on YouTube and stuff. And I remember one of the things that she said that was so bang on is she said, always do the right thing. That
Oh,
was one
yes.
thing she emphasized. She said, don't let anybody, any situation make you go against your values, your moral, and so that she's saying it differently, but it's still with a good heart. Always do things with a good heart. And if you can't, then the answer naturally is no, not to hurt anybody, but just to be authentic and put the right vibe out there. And sometimes
Yes.
you say no and you say a prayer for the other person that they get what they need from someone else because you aren't able to do it. So it could be
Mm-hmm.
saying no, but also putting a prayer out there that everything works out for them, right? And it might be
Yes.
saying no and reaching out to somebody that you think could help. You see so it's
Yes.
not a negative. We just tend to put it in our head as a negative. And so we have
Yes.
to change that.
And I love how you brought up. That's exactly what I was saying. If I can't help them, someone will.
Hmm.
Or like set that up for them, right? But I think I did a whole talk about integrity, doing the right thing even when no one's watching
Yeah.
or when it's hard. I have that in one of my talks is what is integrity? Do people have integrity? Does society have integrity? We have a lot of good people come on that live. So if if anybody wants to talk about what I think about integrity,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole thing. But that's one thing I've learned, and they really teach in our boot camp is having integrity and being a
Right.
good leader, but with integrity. But having I kind of explored this, and I never thought about the different aspects of integrity. But having integrity for like an organization,
Mm-hmm.
but having integrity, self integrity. I had a wonderful lady talk about what her thoughts were integrity, and it's more of self integrity.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when you're saying, like you said, saying true to yourself, staying true to your ethics and morals, and when you and always having a place of love. When you operate out of a place of love, it will come back to you, and that's basically what karma is. Karma is a lot of people don't really understand or they shy away from karma, but
Mm-hmm.
all karma, literally the word means is action. So whatever
Yeah.
actions you're putting out into the world, it will come back to you. That's why it's
Exactly.
important to come back to operate out of a place of love.
Like you'll notice my brand has a tree. It's a tree, and if you look carefully in the tree, you actually see a person growing, right? And one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that I've taught my kids is the same thing. Always put out good and good intentions behind your
Mm-hmm.
actions, because you don't want a bad branch, right?
That's beautiful.
Because a
Yes.
bad branch extends to your generations. That's just, I'm just giving you a concept of what I truly believe. So I never want my tree to have bad branches. So
Yes.
I look to put good out, right? I'm very conscious of that. And I want to, when I say I want to help, I want to help. When I say I can't help, it's because I can't help. When I say I want to serve people in the best of my ability, I want to do that, because I don't want any bad leaves and I don't want any bad branches, because that to me
Yes.
is a generational baton I don't want to hand.
Yeah, you don't want it coming back to you in
No,
different branches.
not
And
from
I
the
feel like
universe.
sometimes we beat ourselves up when we say no, next opportunity for someone,
Hmm.
when we don't have the energy to give, and we're like, I could do this, but I don't have that energy to
Hmm.
give. But that's still, if you were when you're respecting and checking in with yourself and saying, I just don't have the energy to give my best self,
Hmm.
and you tell them no. I've had the problem of like beating myself up, but I don't anymore because again, I think about this is I want the best for that person, and if
Hmm.
I'm not, if I'm not doing, um, living in that like checking in with my energy and grounding, like what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
then again they're gonna get like a half-assed version of myself. They deserve better than that.
So, and one of the things I want to go back to and mention, because I just want to give this thought on integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, integrity is integrity. And let me explain what I mean by that. One of my philosophies and practice philosophy is that integrity definitely ties to self. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Can we agree on that? Okay. There's no thing such as professional integrity and personal integrity. Let me make sure I explain that a bit. Those two things are us living a fragmented life. And let me explain. The Jen that is a professional or an entrepreneur or business owner is the same Jen that is Jen as a personal person, as an individual. From the time you start talking about integrity in business or in professional and integrity with self, you are being defragmented. You are actually speaking abstract and you're defragmenting your life. And guess what? The same person is living the same life.
Yes, I know what you're
You
talking
know what I'm
about.
saying? So I
Uh-huh.
believe that it's about living one wholesome life that encompasses Jen. If Jen has the values that I just spoke about and the integrity I just spoke about, any business I open, any professional job I take on, I will handle those with the same level of integrity as I do in my personal life. And if where we fall apart and where, and you'll understand this, this is how marriages fall apart, this is where somebody goes to work and they're one way at work, come home and they're another way at home. That's not integral. You cannot be like that. You can't tell me I'm this perfect, I'm the perfect husband, wife, whatever, over here, and I'm a shitty boss. Like I'm a lousy boss with no ethics. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It starts to come out in ulcers. It starts to come out in health issues. It starts to come out in ulcers, cancer, all sorts of things because you're defragmenting from your soul divine peace.
Mm.
Does that make
And
sense?
so,
Or does it sound like I'm
oh no, it 100% does, and I agree with you. So when I was talking about integrity, like
Mhm,
at work and at home,
mhm.
I was I got into ethics and morals and
Exactly.
how they come into play. So, for example, I've taught a lot about ethics and morals. I've taught a whole like seminar on
Mhm,
ethics and morals. And so, morals is like your beliefs, like your integrity, like what you believe to be true and right, good and bad, right?
mhm.
But when I'm talking about like professional ethics, I'm talking about like the rules. That's basically what it comes down to: is the rules that the world has set. And so, I gave the perfect example of like, let's say like tell you to do this rule, like this rule is a thing, but you don't agree with it. How did you follow the ethics or the integrity of the business, or do you follow that your personal integrity with morals? So you could have integrity for the business and like, yes, this is right, like this rule or whatever, but you're not upholding your personal morals. And so when you find the perfect balance that aligns with your integrity, like your morals, and the integrity with the ethics of whatever organization you're working with. That's the perfect balance. Do you see how I kind of
I see, but
found
I
that
can't.
sweet
I
spot?
can, in all honesty, tell you, Jillian. I agree, and I will call out again. One of the most well-known ones, Oprah Winfrey, does not separate her morals, ethics, and values from her business. She actually
Okay.
embeds her, and yeah, as I said, listen to her if you think I'm wrong. She actually embeds her morals, values, and ethics within the way she runs her business and her enterprise. And I'm
And that's
saying to
cool.
you that that is how many people, that's how the world needs to run. Now I understand, and I think actually Steve Jobs did the same thing with Apple, right? But I'm saying to you, the way the when we start to teach the separation of those things under the guise of corporate policy, corporate roles, corporate thing, that is how we defragment ourselves and allow our
Mm-hmm.
conscience to feel better by going against our personal things. So for example, if I go and work for a company that I find is not respecting or not treating the staff in the way I think is an ethical to my value system, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot manage in that company because it will go against, and I will come home stressed. I will come
Mm-hmm.
home feeling like crap, and I will come
Mm-hmm.
home in a whole different vibe that is separate from my morals because there is a conflict between my personal values and morals and what I am forced to do or need to do in that work environment. I will quit.
Oh,
I will not,
as you should. Yes,
right?
and I think that's the exact dichotomy that I was bringing up, is
Mhm.
that a lot of times we work in an environment, because I was thinking from like the worker's perspective,
Mhm.
right? If whatever ethics that they're pushing don't align with your integrity, with your morals, right? Then you do like exactly you become defra- def, uh, defragmented,
Yeah.
right? you can't, you separate yourself. You're more stressed. You're more things because you're like, I don't believe this is right, but I mean, according to the policy, I have to do this. And so that's why I said it's ideal, right? Is you want to find a workplace or create a business that, I mean, if you're creating a business, then you're in charge. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And it should follow your your views on things. And for sure, if the person has skewed values or whatever, it'll reflect in the business. But then the people coming in have to decide, does that work for me or not? And I want people to understand, I'm not telling them crash their lives and quit. I'm saying strategically do your exit, because it doesn't fit with you, and doing it long term that doesn't fit with you is going to lead to health issues.
Oh yes, 100%. That's why I'm just like, I'm backing you up that when we don't have our self integrity, we don't have those, our morals don't line up with an organization, you will have a lot of hardship, whatever that hardship may be. Like, again, through health issues, through mental, possible mental illness, right? Stress, all those things, it will reflect. So finding an organization or building an organization that are ethically, like through the law, like the greater laws, like the federal government.
Exactly.
And also within your own personal morals. That is the key to living a happy, fulfilling life.
And that's what I call, once you've got those two aligned and you're living wholesome, what I call divine-tastical living, when you're living in that frame, then that's empowerment. That is truly self-empowerment, is the authenticity, the integrity, and all of those things, and striving for what you need to do for yourself and not putting yourself at the bottom of the barrel. All those things is what I call divine-tastical living, and being totally in balance and aligned with who you are. And we're all thriving that, because as we grow too, we got to we'll be hit with new decisions and new things to think about, and it keeps going, right? But it's, how do you get to that? And I think people have to start to think about these things, because there are many of them that are dealing with these types of issues and feel they have to stick through that, for the money. And sometimes the money just isn't enough to give you the fulfillment, the satisfaction, and the health outcomes and healthy outcomes. Right? So it's just something for people to start to really think about. And in this thankful period, this is when we have to start to think about these things and say, what can I change? Whether the steps are small or big. As I said, I would never tell anybody to crash their lives and their livelihood, but there's ways you can strategically pivot to get to greater fulfillment, satisfaction, and happiness in your life. And it really is looking at the alignment of all these things as an individual and as someone who is loving themselves.
Yes. And I was about to time out, and I was like, she's talking. I don't want to interrupt her. Thank you for having me that time.
No, not a problem. I enjoyed talking to you. And just evaluating, because it's, I can talk all night. That's my gift. Is speaking and writing, but it's nice to have the conversation and kind of get the different perspectives out there. And I encourage anyone jump in, that want to jump in as a guest. But I love getting your viewpoint and seeing, how aligned people, and whether sometimes I'm saying things and I'm going, I wonder if people are grasping it, or but so it's gratifying. So thank you for joining.
Yes, I love these types of topics. And so when I heard you talking, and it all started out with like self-care, filling your cup, and empowerment. That is, I've been talking about this, I think, the last few days. I actually had to take a nap because I was just I had to take some self-care this afternoon, because I can talk, literally, I'll talk from the moment I get up to the moment I go to sleep.
That's me.
I'll get up and on people's stages, and or creating my own stage to talk about things. But I think that's what the world needs to hear right now. I'm finding as a trend.
Right.
A trend right now on wisdom is people, so many creators and so many like podcasters and coaches. This is what everyone's talking about, and I think we're in a world right now that needs to hear this. And a lot of people are trying to find, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Because when you fill yourself up, that is the beginning of empowerment. So how am I able to fill my cup first? And I think it starts with setting boundaries, right? Like we talked about, saying no, new opportunities to things, and self-care and grounding. I think those are all the elements to empowerment.
I would actually say that's the second step that you called out. The first step is choosing you. The first step is choosing you. And and by choosing you, being very comfortable to say, I can choose me, and it doesn't have a negative implication. I can actually choose me. And then once you've chosen you, then what is it that you wish to do for you? What do you need? What decisions are in front of you that you refuse to make because you actually believe choosing you is the wrong choice, right? And correcting that.
And also, I had a good thought, and I think I lost it. Oh God, it was really good, and I was listening to you, and I just totally.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. What I was saying was choosing you. Maybe I'll trigger it back again. I was saying that choosing you is the first step, and that when you look at after choosing you, you then have to say, what can I do, right, in the interest of me, without feeling guilty or feeling that you don't have that right. You do indeed have the right. Good.
I remember it now. Thank you for bringing down that thought trail again. So another thing that I had a good friend of mine that I was talking to. So he was in a really low point, and we were just, he called me, and I picked up the phone, and he was saying all these self-deprecating things, right? He was talking down about himself. And the thing that I said to him was, if I said these things to you, would we still be friends? And he said, probably not.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is you have to be your own self-advocate and your own best friend, because you have to live with yourself the rest of your life.
Exactly. That you said the exact thing that came in my head. But you're always with yourself. So if you can't get rid of it. Exactly. So if you're saying those things about yourself, oh my goodness, right? Like the person you need to be the closest to is yourself, because you can always hear deprecating things from others. You always can, right?
Always.
So why? Exactly. You can get that from any Tom, Dick, and Harry going out in front of people. So why would you bring it into yourself? Like, no.
Exactly. And so when you start, and that's one thing that I've said to a lot of people, when you start being your own best friend,
right,
and you start self-advocating, right, being your own best friend and sitting with yourself and asking yourself, again, kind of, I don't want to say like a split personality, right? But when you sit down with yourself and you really evaluate, what do I want? Like, how am I talking to myself?
Right.
And recognizing and being self-aware is another big thing. Being self-aware of these habits, thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs, right? When you start realizing, oh my God, I'm tearing myself down, and I'm awesome. Why would I do that to myself? Why would I talk shit to myself? Unless it's, a lot of times people do that in the gym to get them to work harder. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in everyday life. You're like, oh, you're such an idiot. Why would you say that? And it's the little things. You're like, you make a little silly mistake, and you're like, oh my God, I'm retarded. I'm dumb. Whatever you say, right? And then you're like, hey, no, I'm not. It was just an honest mistake. And you stop yourself, and you hear yourself say what you said out loud, and you're like, would I say this to a friend? No. Then why am I saying it to myself? And you kind of keep yourself in check.
And I think you have to get into the practice of, and that's where silence comes into play, right? I said the other day, there's growth in silence. I think I'd put it on
Oh,
LinkedIn and somebody came back and said, oh my God, that's so well said. There's growth in silence. So one of the things is thoughts are always going through your head. And I mean, thousands of thoughts goes through everybody's head every day. And we only remember maybe five of them. Like we don't remember a lot of them. So
yes.
the only way you can get connected to those thoughts is through silence. So even as you were talking about loving to talk to speak, and I do the same thing. I can talk for people go, how do you go and stream for all those hours? I'm like, child, I can talk. But
Same.
I also get I really revel in my silence, and I revel in being a recluse at times, because that's when I can think and I can reflect and I can get more connected with the thoughts that go through my head. And so, what happens over time when you train yourself that way, and that's where meditation comes in, is you start to actually hear when those thoughts come in and you're better able to control it.
Yes,
But if
yes,
you
and I
never
also.
stop, right? If you never stop,
Mhm.
then you are just going through a daily routine and you're really not self connecting. Make sense?
Yes, yes, you're not connecting.
No,
Yeah,
you're not self connecting. You're just going through the routine and you are always beating yourself up and you don't hear it, or you're always in a state of fear and you don't realize that the state of fear is what's stopping you from moving ahead, you know. So we've got to find time to self reflect. And that's why I encourage self reflection. And I always say to people, it's okay to be by yourself. It's okay to be silent. Like I had a friend that made a wrong choice, like made some wrong choices, and I asked them, why are you making these choices all the time? Why are you doing that? I think you need to stop a bit and just spend some time by yourself so you're not making those choices, or to at least come to understand what's triggering it, what's behind it. And they have done that and they've grown so much by doing that because they couldn't before, right? They were just getting stimulus, 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 moving, 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 and not understanding why they were making the choices they were making. And now they've been able to break the pattern by just stopping for a minute, just pause,
yes.
right?
Actually, my first live that was actually really good was how do we feel our feelings and what's the next step? Like,
Like,
what do we do next with once we feel our feelings? And that's when we sit in silence and
mhm,
we allow our emotions to come in and we identify them, or we just acknowledge that they're there. Even if we don't have a name for
mhm,
them, we're like, okay, I'm feeling all these feelings. What do I do next? How do I, become better? And
mhm,
why getting to the root? Keep asking yourself why. I had a class on asking yourself, or just asking why
mhm,
6 times to get to the root of whatever the problem was externally, but you can do
mhm.
that internal well. And when you finally like, oh, I'm a fear of abandonment, or I'm a fear of rejection,
Right.
or whatever it is, and then you can now hit it head on. But if you don't shut up and sit down with yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? Why
Mhm.
am I so upset about this? Then you'll never get to the why.
Exactly. And these are things that we have to do. So I'm hoping those listening are really getting a good sense of the things that they can start to think about and feed into whatever changes they want for themselves in 2023 and even closing out the year. Because I mean, let's face it, we're all humans, we all go through these things, but it's about cultivating and co-creating the person you want yourself to be and to end up being. And and like one of my favorite songs that I love and fuels me is the Beyonce song, I Was Here. Because
Mm,
I want people to know I was here. I want people to know I stood for something. I want people to know I cared. And I want people to be able to say, Jen helped me in this fundamental way. And because I don't ever want to leave this world and can be just so easily forgotten. So I write a
Yes.
ton, I speak a ton, I put out my divine tastical guidance because they live on, and people get to know how I really viewed my life and viewed the important things in life. So I challenge people to say, at the end of the day, what are you doing for yourself first? And then once you've filled your cup with the overflow, what are you doing for others? Because that
Yes.
becomes your way of having people say you were here and you meant something to me, or you meant something to them, or you simply meant something.
Yes, and I was actually on a live earlier today with Daryl with all the dashes, about what is your legacy? What have you inherited? And that's kind of something we talked about even with wisdom.
Hmm.
All of these things of what, like I was here, and I wanted to make a difference. And I told on that live one of my favorite things, and
Hmm.
the first time I thought about a legacy, because you're talking about a legacy when you leave,
Absolutely.
right? And I was in Marine combat training, the second phase of the pipeline training, like the fundamental training
Hmm.
they teach you. And we were just waiting for the chow hall, just ready to get some food. And I had a wonderful staff sergeant. And if you're a staff sergeant, you've been in between at minimum 6 years and beyond, right?
Right.
6, 12, 15 years. And he had said to us, just standing in chow hall line, what do you want to leave? What is your legacy? What do you want to leave? And
Hmm.
that, I don't know, the way he said it was so profound. And it really started to be thinking, even in the early days of being a Marine, what in my career, what do I want to leave?
Exactly.
Who do I like? How do I want to impact people from when I get out? And I just got in. I wasn't thinking about getting out, but that was so profound in me, and I'll never forget it. And that's why I'm still telling this story. Is it started thinking, and not just for the Marine Corps, but for life.
Hmm.
What do I want to leave? Right? What do I want to give my Marines, the people around me, my family? How do I want to be remembered?
Hmm.
And the way I want to be remembered is someone who loved, who gave everything they could, and that they helped others. That's all I really want to be remembered for, is that I helped others and helped humanity.
Exactly. And it's so phenomenal, and I'm going to bring it 360 now, because when you look at legacy and you look at those types of desires, right? It is impossible to lead a fragmented life, because you don't want in your personal life for people to say what an amazing person, and in your business life they were an asshole.
Yes,
It
you're
doesn't
right.
work.
You're right.
It
Yeah,
does
it
not
don't. It
work,
doesn't work
right?
because they were the ninth person.
Exactly, right? So the
Yes.
integrity and everything and the non-fragmented living has to come together for our legacy to truly be put in place. And that's something Oprah fully understands and that she preaches, and that's the same type of message that I also push. It is impossible to be fragmented if you have a true desire for a legacy of some kind of significance, whether it's significant in your little circle. Doesn't have to be significant like an Oprah or Mary, Teresa, Mother Teresa, or anything like that. But it still has to be significant in your sphere of influence. Does that make sense? And it's impossible. Not if you're thinking of things from a legacy. Jillian, I'm going to bring you back on if you wait. I'm going to talk to John for now just to give him some space and go from there. Hi, John. Nice to meet you. Thanks for jumping on.
Hello. Thank you for having me up.
Not a problem. Were you waiting long?
Oh no, no.
Okay, good.
I I very nice topic, and um, I've liked the discussion so far. And as I was listening, you tapped on some things that
Hmm.
I've come to understand myself, and when it gets to the point of trying to stimulate this empowerment, I find it quite challenging on
Mm-hmm.
how you approach this, you know, stimulation of empowerment.
Right.
And for me also, it's like when you talk about, defragmentation, like how, like, what does one mean by that, in a frame of like what context, like what are you defragmenting? Is it your character? Like, is it just maybe your soul, or what are you actually defragging when you get to that point, on terms of just like, I don't know, the like context you use it in.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get grounded on what you mean by a person operating on terms of being defragged.
Yeah. So that's a great question, and let me explain what I mean, because I could talk on this for hours. I'm so passionate about it, and it frustrates me to no end. Society has us living a professional life and a personal life, and separating the two. And I honestly believe that that separation that is encouraged from a societal level, a government level, I really go societal level, is what has caused more marriages to break up, what has caused strife in families and friendships and everything. So when I talk about being defragmented, it is when you are so out of touch with yourself and who you are, right? That you actually believe you can go to work and be a person X and come home and be person Y. The daddy that your child sees should be the same daddy that they see whether you took them to work or not. There shouldn't be a separation between those two pieces, because it all starts with you. So, how you get defragmented is when you have lost touch with you. So, if I said to you, who is John? What is John all about? What would you answer me when you tell me about John? Just as an example.
Um, I'm just deep. I'll put that up as an example. I know it's pretty vague, but there's a variety of different things, and I'm actually glad you brought that up. And after, I don't know if that was a very good example, but
Mhm.
I will continue to listen, and then I will kind of like chime in on like the reason why I
Mhm.
wanted to get a very good grasp on what you meant. So
Yeah, because we are. Many of us have been living, and so one of the things I started to do. Let me use me as an example, right? I started to realize, for example, that when I had cable, I was being driven by the cable. What I mean was, you were paying for cable, you were flipping, and the same thing was coming on over and over and over again, right? And I thought, this isn't helping my day. It isn't enhancing my life in any way. I'm getting the same messaging over and over again. And I did the unthinkable, and I did it about double digit years back. I did something. I remember my friends going, "What? You're doing what?" I shut off the cable. I literally shut off the cable. I was not going to be influenced by it anymore. Okay. The second thing that I did that I realized too was impacting me was when you started to put TV, you go into different establishments and they always have a TV on the wall and it's repeating the same news channel and same negative messaging. And if you look at that thing and take it in, you start to think the whole world is crazy. Like the whole world is negative, right? But I happen to know that there's some really good people out there, and there are people that want to do the right thing and that are doing the right thing. But if I took just what that thing's telling me all the time, it would make me feel like the whole world, I should look over my shoulder, I should mistrust everyone and everybody. So what did I do? I blocked that out. So even when I go in those establishments, I have my earbuds in or something in that is are focused on something. I take a book and I read positive things. I set the intention of my day and I make sure my bubble, and I call it a bubble, I make sure my bubble has goodness. And I lead with 3 words for myself to everybody: lead with love. That's how I go out in my world. I lead with those 3 words, and those are my messaging for me. And I do the grounding and I set my intention based on those 3 words: lead with love. So now when I go out to the world, I accept everybody as they present themselves to me. So you would have to present to me in a way that shows I shouldn't trust you, or in a way that doesn't show. Guess what? I found that most people I encounter are really good people. I find that my day is really happy and contented, and I can be the best for people like yourself as you ask me these questions, because I'm leading with love. There's no judgment. I don't care about, the things that people and media tells me to care about. I set what I care about. That is the first step in becoming defragmented. That for me it was. Is this helping when I explain it in that way?
Oh yes, I totally get what you mean by defragmentation
Yeah.
and what like context you use it in. I totally understand where you're coming from. And this is what I mean by also sometimes it's the approach, and a lot of
Mhm.
times approach is also in a frame by one's very own experience. So when
Exactly.
you express this step by step process, some people may understand it, some people may not understand it. But for me, I totally get where you're coming from, because for an example, for the workplace, I should
Mhm.
put it. I highly relate to that. You see, I'm solidified within my own being to a point where I have my own principles, and I operate. That is the foundation of my character.
Right.
So let's just say, for example, I would say enter like another job or some type of business, and
Mhm.
they throw a picture up for me, and they entice me like, hey, this is how you got to do it. This is what you got to do. And if it overrides my very own principles,
Mhm.
then I'm not going to actually jump in there and do it, because
Right.
that is not me.
Exactly.
And this is represented through all of everything that I touch, I see, I do. This is the fabric of me, and this is where I come from. But
Mhm.
oftentimes, I think that for me, I don't want to put it in the frame of just like, not that it's the bad thing, but in comparison to just like people in general,
Mhm.
I don't think it's an issue that we are defragmented or whole. I think like when we're all born, we're all conditioned, and not that condition is a bad thing. Initially, we all start off being conditioned by the world, by everybody, and with that, we lose a part of ourselves. And
Mhm.
what we always touch on a lot is who we are, and
Mhm.
we skip one other part of ourselves, and we become blind to it. And you can
Mhm.
hear it throughout everyone's vocabulary as they talk, and they always go to who. But there's another part of ourselves
Mhm.
that we seem to always become blind to or jump over, and that is what we are. And oftentimes, when people are operating in this place that we have been conditioned,
Mhm.
the one thing that they highly focus on is who. No one really understands. Well, some people don't get to a point of understanding exactly what they are, and that could be the first step to having this empowerment.
Mhm.
And to get to this empowerment is actually combining who and what, and you can build off what, and who is always constructed every day.
Mhm.
As we experience new things, we intake different principles, beliefs, we change, we adapt to our environment. This
Mhm.
is who we are. This is ever changing, but what we are is the foundation. And we had conditioned ourselves to wrap ourselves up in this world of who, which is a lot of constructs and things of
Yeah,
that nature.
exactly.
And even
Abstracts,
when
yes.
yes, and even when we get to a place of just like values and principles.
Mhm.
Nowadays in American culture, I don't even want to say nowadays, but in American culture, it's become very, very dog eat dog world.
Mhm.
So we have created this environment for ourselves in terms of we have two different parts of ourselves that, hey, we are our how do I say, more authentic self around no one else, but when we're in the face of someone else, we put up this persona,
Mhm.
which isn't entirely a bad thing. It's not the fact that you're defragged or whole. It's how you feel secure within yourself to be able to be to accept the fact that you're at some point going to be defragged, or at some point you're going to be whole. So if you are solidified in the very foundation of understanding in terms of awareness of what you are, you can be defragged. Meaning, for example, you can walk out there and you can put on this facade of proper etiquette because you understand that this is offering up an environment or space for a person to enter in because they do not know me on terms of security or terms of trust or just any of those things when you encounter another being. So then you know that at some point you're not going to be able to just throw everything out at them at once of who you are authentically because you don't know how they will take it. So you put up this environment that is social that another person may match up with, but you can take it a lot more deeper and solidify the connection if both are how would I say they if both are curious into wanting to know more about each other. So I think like once you get to a point of empowering yourself, which I think is the first step of accepting exactly what you are and just also who you are at the same time, and know that there's going to always be parts of you that is going to be represented in everything and everyone else at the very same time. So when you interact with another being, like even if it comes from a place of all the negative things that we have encountered in our life, and I like to highlight judgment, right? You know that it's coming from an identical place that it will be coming from you. So when you get to a place of judgment, then you go, hey, ouch, or that felt good. But it is a place of judgment that, hey, I do it, everyone else do it. But even if it's a negative one, you know exactly where it's coming from. They're human, they're very emotional. Now, I'm not justifying that once you just openly go out intentionally hurting other people. But there's an element of us that we don't have entire control of, and people have instinctual reactions. So you just kind of give them space to be like, okay, you know what? Maybe, okay, I'll give you a little bit of space for that. But after that, kind of have some type of discernment to understand, like, hey, what is your intent? What is your intent? Because some people are not aware of that part of themselves, and they just lash out on an abundance of emotions, right? So, I don't know. I just kind of got off on a tangent. I just started rambling. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. But I listen. I'm listening to you. I can't. What I think that you are have put, defrag, is when you meet someone like we've just met, right? You don't know me, I don't necessarily know you, and I agree, I'm not going to be a faucet tap and start telling you my whole life story and stuff like that. I'd say follow me and you'll hear, but and you'll hear the different things coming out, whether it's by reading an article I wrote, whether it's by listening to this show, whether it's by listening to my taking a course with me, whatever. You will hear different things about my life and about how I got to where I am here and my viewpoints. That is not the same as living a defragmented life. That is respecting that we don't know each other, and over time we'll learn about each other if we connect enough times. That's that's being more private and that sort of language. But living defragmented is when you literally have one type of person, like you put on a whole, you go against your morals and your values. When you're going away and thinking I can be this way in this situation and that way in that situation, that's defragmented. That is not holistic. That's not fully authentic. when you put up facades. That's not fully authentic. That's how we get, neighbors that we think are the perfect, the perfect family, and then you find out they're, oh my God, they've been doing, this and this and that and all that. That's defragmented. So that's my comeback. I think they're two completely different things. We have the ability to hold some things to ourselves. We don't have to share everything, even in a coupling and our partnering. You don't need to share everything, but the person that you are is still integral. The way you treat that person is still integral. The decisions you made are still integral to your values and your morals. That's the difference between holistic living, what I call divine tastical living, and tying into who you are, your divinity within, and the personality that you bring out. Tie in those two things. In the book, the seed of the seat of the soul. I don't know if you've ever read that book. If you haven't, I would suggest that you read it. He calls it authentic empowerment, is when your personality connects with your soul and are one and the same. That's what I'm calling defragmented, when those two things aren't. So they're two completely different things. Yes, when I meet you, I don't need to pour out every, thing to you and make it public. But it doesn't mean that, the Jen you see tonight and the Jen you see tomorrow are two different Jens, or what I write about tomorrow, last week, and what I talk about today are two different things. And when I'm going through a growth period and I say to you, I'm growing. So what I used to believe or what I thought was thing, I've now changed my viewpoint. That's still being integral. That's being transparent. And that's what I'm talking about. And that's what Jillian and I were talking about. So I'm going to keep you. Hi, John. Hi, John. Did you hear what I said before? So I'm gonna let's talk about this, and then I'll let the other guests jump in as well. So hold on there. I'm gonna come to you in a second. The guest that was waiting. So they're two completely different things that I think you're tying together as part of defragmented and not, and I don't think they're the same thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Thank you for expressing that. Like I said, I totally understand
Mm-hmm.
where exactly where you're coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean is that okay. Let's see if I can frame it this
Mm-hmm.
way. So okay. I want to understand what does a person mean by being authentic. So when you are authentic, what does it mean? And some people, when they think about authentic, that means they release all of the filters of themselves and be exactly who they are. So to understand what you are, you know that we're all emotional beings.
Yeah.
So when you present yourself in the most authentic way, again, some may imply that they're just uplifting all restrictions of themselves, this filter, releasing this persona that they have to put in front of another person. So let's just say you was to express exactly what's on your mind at that given time to a person, and it may be authentic, and this authenticity may represent maybe rudeness. It can be taken negatively. I should put it that way simply. And a person may see you then for being authentic, for speaking your mind, as being negative, because you had no consideration of their emotional state at that point in time. And that is how it can be taken from literally anyone. So in a way, you have to put up this filter to get a feeling of the situation, to represent this part of you that understands another being, because you understand exactly what they are, because you're both the same, if I could put it that way. So in what I'm pointing at is I understand exactly where you're coming from when you mean by defrag. And But do other people understand such of an approach? It implies that one is detached from themselves, but no one on this planet is detached from themselves.
But there may not, but they may not be. There may not be whole in their thinking, in their mindfulness. That's also the other piece. And I think what you're talking about is, especially for public figures, right? When you say things, is to hold back from a viewpoint of political correctness, which is what a lot of North America is guided by, is this political correctness. And I'll give you a perfect example with as a parent, where my child came home and her work was incorrect, but the teacher put it as correct because she tried. And when not realizing that, when she came and I looked at it, I said, it's wrong. And she said, no, my teacher said it's right. And she said, I tried, but it's wrong. Are you telling me I need to tell you it's correct, even though it's wrong? And that was the way the school was guiding them, right? So to me, that is not that there's a lack of authenticity. It's the fact that they are maneuvering from a political correctness and trying not to, you know, to supposedly hurt the feelings of a child. But at the same time, the child needs to know when the numbers are wrong and when they're correct. So what are we really teaching at that point in time? I'm just using that as an example, as a, you know, a way to show that there's one thing about, I think what you're framing is political correctness. So when you go out and you're speaking, then you're trying to change your language from political correctness. But if you're really being authentic and you're being accepting and you're being and your value system is a certain way, then it's harder for that type of thing to come up, because you're still learning how to deliver the message in a way that is um, structured from a point of love. So you remember those three words I said I'm guided by: lead with love. Even as we are talking about this, I'm not saying anything to put you down, to you know, or any kind of negative way of speaking, because I'm leading with love. And I'm thinking, but it's not even from a political correctness. It's about having a conversation that is meaningful to you and I, and it's respecting your views and hopefully you respecting mine, and we can still have a conversation and move forward. And it doesn't have to, yeah, do you understand what I mean? What I'm trying to say though is that you can still be authentic from that viewpoint.
Yeah, look, I don't like, okay, I'm not, how do I put this?
Just say it, John. You're not going to offend me.
No, I'm not trying to
I know, but I'm saying just say it. I'm not.
It's not that it's not that I'm tripping up or anything.
Okay.
I'm trying to find a point of very good frame,
okay,
so that you can understand where I'm coming from. Because sometimes I think I'm a little bit everywhere, and I don't think people actually understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not highlighting what you're saying or undermining what you're saying.
I'm not taking it that way.
Gotcha. And I understand exactly where you're coming from, but what I'm pointing at, what I was trying to tie in earlier, was that also I was going to put that empowerment and tie that into what I was.
Okay.
At that time. And what I was looking at was, okay, let's just say you have a person, and a lot of people, when they point at authenticity, again, for example, they have these filters that, you know, they get rid of because they feel like that's not them when they conform to those filters.
Right.
For me, those filters are not the issue. Those filters do not imply one is not being authentic. What is I'm sorry, I tripped up. What's not authentic is not revealing your intent. The
Right.
intent is the fundamental part. The intent bypasses all things from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a human being that is defragged or whole,
Mm-hmm.
I don't look at them as defragged
Mm-hmm.
or whole. And if they are, then that's it's okay. I look at defrag as those filters.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not the filters, it's the
Mm-hmm.
intent. So if I have a person that is going from whole to defrag, for me, again, it's what's the intent behind it? What
Right.
is the reason behind what motivates them to do such of a thing? For me, that is where authenticity is revealed at. It's not so much of the defragmentation
Mm-hmm.
or the wholeness. And again, as I brought up earlier, is that when we are conditioned in such ways, which entirely isn't a bad thing, but when we are conditioned in such ways of a certain part of ourselves, which we are in who,
Mm-hmm.
we are born in this world where we're just in this cycle of who, and we're kind of blind to what we are until maybe we go down a path of pain or trauma, and they have us do this existential questioning where we
Right.
tap into these elements of ourselves, and with that we get this empowerment where
Mm-hmm.
we brace ourselves, not so much in an egotistical way, self-centered way, or however you want to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It incorporates all things. It's how we mitigate through it. So this is how we, like, for me, when I meet a person and they're trying to conform
Mm-hmm.
to a particular way, I don't necessarily get to a point of you're being you're not authentic or not. I get to this point of what is your intent? I need to know even if you lie to me, your
Mm-hmm.
intent is something for me is fundamental and important.
Right.
So some people, when they operate in the world of for example, home and then work, and they go through these filters, then for me, it's not so much of you're not being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
I need to understand your intent behind it. And that's where a lot of these business, in terms of just like value and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of other things, the way America is set up in terms of this, like, business, it's the intent that they're doing. That's the issue for me. It's like, okay, you can sit here and switch up and switch your
Mm-hmm.
filters. I understand that, but if your reason behind it is to I don't know, for the negative things,
Mm-hmm.
then your intent, you're not being authentic right now. You're trying to take advantage of me. That's your intent. That for me is being not so authentic. You're
Right.
just playing through filters because you're trying to take advantage of me. That is your motivation there. And that's what I mean. So that what I started off earlier is like, it's the approach. So if I approach someone
Mm-hmm.
and go, hey, you're totally not, you're not whole, blah blah blah, it's going to send a person that is kind of confused in where they're at right now, and makes it digs a hole a little bit more deeper for them. Rather than saying you're a complete person, you're a whole person. You already you have been your entire life. You're not aware of your own quality as a human being. So I want to empower you as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
as a whole human being, to stand where you're at, get to a level of understanding where you're coming from, and and what you are as
Mm-hmm.
a being. And I can't really tell a person to be that way or give a step-by-step process, but only I can just represent such of a thing in my life. And I'm not saying this to counter what you're saying.
No, I'm not taking it that way. Mm-hmm.
Wrong. I'm not doing that, and I may sound passionate right now. Or
It's okay. I like when people are passionate about what their viewpoints and all of that. That's the whole point of having the conversation, right? The one thing that I do want to make sure you understand, I don't go around saying to people, you're John, you're defragmented, or I don't talk like that in in my therapy or working with clients. I don't go around pointing finger going, you're defragmented or not. I listen to, I think the way to think of it as parts, meaning part of me does this and part of me does that. That's what is more like when you think of even things that you think about or want to do. Do you ever put in your mind, part of me wants this and part of me wants that, or part of me does this and part of me do that? Do you think of anything? Can you think of anything like that that you do? Because that to me is what, but I don't go around using this with people to say, oh, you're defragmented or judging them in that way. I want to make sure that you understand that. It's a philosophy that I have in my practice that the aim is to make people better connected with themselves and connected to their soul intentions. I believe when we were born, we were all born perfect. We were born magnificent. And as we were interacted with society, things were said to us, whether it's from our parents, whether it's from school, whether it's from friends, it doesn't matter. Things were said to us that either shut down the dreams, because I believe when kids come into this world, they do know what their purpose and power are. And many times when they say it, then people go, oh, you can't make a living from that. Like if a child said, I want to be an artist, a lot of times they'll hear things like, you can't really make a living from that. And that's like shutting down what was naturally their intent. And the next thing they go in, I heard one in someone say they wanted to be a particular, an artist. And instead the parent told them they couldn't make any money from that. And now they're an industrial engineer because they couldn't go down the route. But they looked at, and said, if I had to do it all again, I would go down the artistry path. So these are the types of things I'm talking about, of how it diverts you from sometimes your intentions, and it ends you up on a path that maybe that wasn't to be your path. And it happens to all everyone, I think, or more so than not. And then we have to figure it out as adults.
Yeah. So before I leave,
Mm-hmm.
The way you clarify that, I appreciate that. But you didn't need to. Even if he was to run around saying that everyone is defragged, I'm still don't feel some type of way about
Mm-hmm.
it. What I was something different. I know that I know what you mean. I know your passion. I know your intent behind it. And this.
Oh, okay. So the gentleman that was waiting, if he wants to jump on, you more can. Thank you. I'm sorry if I kept but I wanted to finish with John before going that. But Jillian and John, I want to thank you for joining us and having those conversations. And John, I love your passion, and I want to assure you, I do get your points, and I do absolutely take it in. And I love having different viewpoints for me to reflect on. It may seem like I'm not really reflecting on, but I will. And I do aftermath think of these things and really reflect. And I do appreciate all of that. So if I think it was Jim that was in the waiting room. If he wants to jump back on, by all means, please do. A great conversation. Oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about. And I just love how this has generated, because I think what we're seeing is, people's passion. And I think the one thing I want to talk about is COVID brought about a greater heightened consciousness in all of us to thrive for more, to look at our level of satisfaction with where we are, to look at to what degree are we fulfilled. The word authentic came out, and we have been hearing it a lot. Focus is another word we've been hearing. I happen to believe that all of us, the God we search for, the God spark, I call it, that we search for is within all of us. And one of the connections we have to get to is that God spark, is that divinity within us. And to better have a relationship with that divinity, to hear the different messages that come from that divinity to us. In my own journey, it became a loud, nagging voice that I could do more. I had a purpose higher than what I had already achieved, and I was needed. And it became so loud that I could no longer ignore it. And I did a pivot that has arrived to me right here, speaking to you guys, writing my articles, writing my books, doing my podcast, opening up a Divine Tastical Living Institute, forming the Divine Tastical Living movement. All of that came from me listening to that divine message within, that I was not at stepping up to the plate as I was intended. So I do believe all of us have that. I believe in all of you. I believe in your perfection. I believe in your magnificence. And I need all of you to believe in it yourself and to thrive for whatever you believe you need to thrive for, to reach fulfillment, to reach living a divine tastical life. And those are the basis behind why I'm here. I'm not asking you to necessarily think. I will tell you my thoughts, my views. It has come about from a lot of reflection, from a lot of, thought and meditation. And I am growing as all of us are. And I'm a recovering perfectionist. I always wanted things to be perfect. It never is. I've come to realize that. So even I am growing as an individual. What I'm asking in this particular broadcast is, where are you in your journey? And with the 5 weeks left of the year, how will you close out those 5 weeks to move into a new year and a new you? What do you want to see for yourself in 2023? And what do you put in place to get to what you believe you should be striving for? To what degree today are you number one in your life? To what degree today do you have a very intimate, close relationship with yourself? To what degree today are you self-sabotaging, having limiting beliefs, dealing with your shites, whether it be trauma, whether it be, less than thoughts, whatever? What are the shites that you got that you aren't dealing with? To what degree are you making concrete decisions about your life? To what degree are you living as integrally as you can? These are the questions that I'm asking as we go into the new year. I strongly believe, by doing this myself and seeing the benefits of it, that, like Jillian and I spoke about, you need to start before the year ends to get into the groove, to make the start of the year pick up momentum in the way you want, and consistency and commitment. I believe you start in the thankful season, which is what we are in right now. So these are the things I can put on the table for you to help you think and trigger thoughts, just like thoughts were triggered with John, thoughts were triggered with Jillian, thoughts were triggered with Jim, who was waiting in the waiting queue. And I would love for him to jump back on if he has some thoughts. I really want to trigger and plant the seeds for you to start to say, to what degree am I number one in my life? And it's not selfish. It is necessary for you to maintain a healthy disposition, for you to pursue wellness, and for you to also overflow your cup to be able to support others, including your children, your partner, and other people in your life. These are the things that I teach and practice, and I can only share that with you to plant the seeds for you to start thinking of these things, and not wait till after the year starts to then try to play catch up to try to make your year go the way you want. And for sure, you will adjust, and you will, the journey is not a straight journey. It will be a curved, it will be, sometimes going into a trench, climbing out of a trench. Yes, these things are understood, but how can you put the best foot forward is the question. And in doing so, how do you start to look at yourself? Because as Jillian and I said, you are with yourself 24/7. You 24/7, you are with yourself. And when you get up every day and look in the mirror, that's the net person you're seeing. And I want you to like who's looking back at you. I want you to love who's looking back at you. I want you to care for the person looking back at you in the best way possible. That's what Gendrix is all about. That's what Divine Tastical Living is all about. That's what all of her products and programs and services are all about. And that's what I'm about. And I really want you to start to look at those things. What can change? What small steps can you make? What steps have you already taken, and how much more steps can you go forward with, and what would those steps in 2023 look like? These are the things I want to talk about in this broadcast for 2023 and closing out 2022, going into 2023. Because all of those pieces, as they come together, are your empowerment for the coming year. But it requires you to pause a moment, reflect a moment, and think and be. You don't have to share them with anybody. This is about you having a conversation with you. And whatever the answers are, start to strategize on how to make your life empowered, make your voice empowered, make your intentions empowered, right? And not be harmful to yourself or others. So that's what we're talking about. And as we, slide in to the last remaining time of this stream, I hope that all those, all the USA listeners had an amazing Thanksgiving, had a meaningful Thanksgiving, had a safe Thanksgiving, and had an extremely loving and joyous Thanksgiving. That's what I hope. And as Thanksgiving comes to an end tomorrow, like depending on how long you go for, but I would think from Thursday to Sunday, you have been, celebrating, embracing, and just being reflectful for all the positive things in your life. And that you continue that even going into the remaining time to end the year. So that is my wish sentiment for all of you. And that was specific to those practicing their Thanksgiving this week, but also for everyone, wherever you're listening from. Just know that sometimes when you think you're having a hard time, when you think nothing is working out for me, when you think you're up against a brick wall, when you think you're facing obstacles, I just want you to know that there's someone out there who believes in you, who prays for you, and who truly wants you to thrive. I want you to know you're not alone. That's what I also want for all of you listening to know that. And that there is, you can improve, you can grow, you can change, you can do all these things. It simply starts with a decision to do it. And it starts with commitment and actions towards whatever you dream of for yourself. That's where it starts. But it also starts, as I said to Jillian, with choosing you. It really does. And I can only speak to you as someone that went on that journey someone that found herself years ago going down a road that wasn't leading her to fulfillment and decided to pivot. And where I am today and where I was are like night and day, leagues apart, and understanding what it took to do the pivot. And I can never tell you it was easy, but I was determined to do it and I was passionate about it. And where I have landed is nowhere near where I thought the journey would go or how it would go, because it morphed and it changed depending on how opportunities presented themselves and and based on the guidance of my divine. So as someone that has walked the path and continues to walk the path to growth and improvement and self awareness and building and continuing to build the relationship with self and continuing on my journey to an amazing mission, a big mission to serve and help others. That's the way I can talk to you. And I think 2023, we are already in a change time. And I think we will start to see bigger changes starting to unfold in 2023. And I want us to be ready for that, because I don't want anybody left behind as a result of the changes or because of fear of the changes or because of playing ostrich that we are not changed in changed times. We are. And it's a time of excellence. It's no longer a time of mediocrity. It's a time of striving for excellence in ourselves. And it is continuing to raise the consciousness that COVID started and to continue to raise that bar and strive to be better each and every day than the person we were the day before. And that's what I'm at, speaking about and saying, how can we raise that bar for ourselves and put an outstretched hand to help others raise it for themselves as well and to help others. And for me, it's about changing perspectives or giving a new perspective of consideration for conversations like you heard today. We don't have to agree. We just have to be open to the viewpoints of others, respect the viewpoints of others, and be willing to reflect on those viewpoints. Because even in reflecting on those viewpoints, we could get new messaging for us and new growth for ourselves. So that's what empowerment means. That's what empowerment into 2023 means. And this platform, when I come on to stream, my platform is one of giving people a chance to voice their viewpoints, to hear their viewpoints, to start to understand their viewpoint, to reflect on it. And I may not agree with everything. They may not agree with everything I say. But if we can come to an understanding of those viewpoints, then we enrich our lives, we enrich us, and from there, growth can evolve. And if we can be a better person because of those conversations, I am all for it. I am all for it. Really, I am. So in the last few minutes that we have, let me say that I will be on again in 2 weeks, which will be on the 10th of December again, streaming. And that's when I will come on again and we will touch base. And it will be again a topic leading us into the new year and challenging us on what changes we see. And I thank everybody who has joined me. I am Jen Drakes. I would also encourage you to visit my website where you get to see all the things that I do. And that is jendrakes.com. And it's Jen with 2 N's and Drakes with an S. So JENNDRAKES.com. So visit the website, look at the things that I am doing. I launched a Divantastical Living Institute. I've got some courses for self-sabotage to help curb that and to guide you on how to avoid that. You heard some of my insights in my discussion. If you want, you can listen to the replay of the broadcast. Um, and also, my podcast, Arrays of Living, is there for you to look at. You can get it on all the major platforms: Spotify, Libsyn, Amazon, Google, Apple. You can get the podcast and also on the website. So that's there. Been writing, gone back to writing my articles. You can see the new articles on the website. And I'm writing for Manual Magazines. I would urge you to look it up, Manual Magazines. Please look it up and check it out. You'll be able to see it on there. And it's on Google News, my articles as well. So again, encouraging you to look at it there. And it is Manual, Manual magazines.com. I've also had articles on Brains Magazine, so you can look those up. What else am I missing? Am I missing anything? Interviews I've taken, as well as programs that I am running. And I'm also trained a master coach in working with from a neuroscience perspective to help you with any struggles that you have. Um, so please reach out to the email that you can look at is jen@youareworthmore.co, not com, but jen@youareworthmore.co. And as I always say, you definitely are worth more. And I would love to work with you for you to find and figure out exactly what that worth is, and to get you to give yourself grace and grow. So, on that note, um, just want you to be aware of that. And by all means, please follow, like, subscribe. I'm on all LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, where we post my Divantastical Living guidance each week, and go from there. So you'll be able to follow me there. And I'm on Facebook as well, and Twitter. So I have to remember to always do that. So like, follow, subscribe. Um, my book is on Amazon. It's called Aladdin Carpets, and it's on Amazon, and you can look at that. And shortly, two more books will be released. And one is a poetry book, and another one is another self-improvement guidance book that is being worked on. So just wanted to give you a sense of a little bit about me and who I am. And I'm a master coach and life strategist. And I work with both personal individuals as well as businesses, to move them forward from a perspective of growth. So there's the insights and the plugs. I must do that. I'm not always great at doing that. So I want to thank you again for listening, going in to the last 3 minutes. And thank you I will be looking up Listen by Alan Watts. Jillian, thank you for following me. I'll return the kindness after the broadcast. And we just going into the last 2 minutes. So you'll get to see me some more before the holidays. And um, just really happy to be here. Hopefully you got some nice nuggets in the broadcast, this stream. And just thank you for joining me once again. Love it, love it, love it. Love what I do. And Kyle, thank you for jumping on and telling me. Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you're currently living your best life. I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you so much for that. I'm always glad when people are saying that, because you know what? There's so much. People are going through a lot. We're being hit left, right, and center. Things are moving so much more quickly. I get it. And it's hard sometimes to keep up, but keep up we must. And what do you need? And it always comes down to mindfulness. It comes down to our skills. It comes down to our resources and how we can up level all of those, to just be better, to improve, to grow, to thrive. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. That's what we need to do, is thrive, thrive, thrive. Totally, totally get it. So let's do that. Let's truly, truly, truly thrive. Let's put our best foot forward. Let's think about all those things so that we can definitely do that. And, let's not ever take things for granted. A big part of that is knowing, which was the whole thing of this week, was about looking at all the things we have in our lives and not focus on what we don't. What are the things we have to be thankful for in our lives? And that's where our focus needs to be sometimes. And I get that life can hit us. Oh my God, it can hit us and it can punch us. And yes, we are human. We get it. We get it. We get it. Yes, we are human. But let's give ourselves grace, and let's just sometimes focus on what we really do have in our lives each and every day. And if it's accumulating it and chunking it up to a year, let's do that too. And know that we probably have way more than we give ourselves credit for. Way more. And and hopefully I can be that light in your life to remind you of that. And if that's what it takes to get you through the day and through the week and through the month and through the year, then that's what I'm prepared to do. Truly is a commitment. And I also want to remind you to look up grounding and to do that, to try to instill some grounding in your life, to, really balance and set your intentions for the day to recharge, right? Rejuvenate, re energize, and do those things. And I'm interested, if you do try it, please, when I can jump on, please jump on and let me know how it's going for you. And Jillian, I do want to know that if you do try the grounding in the morning, I am curious to know how it's working for you as well, what changes you're seeing, and if it's as in the same type of way I've seen it for myself. I'd love to get your perspective on that. And so with that, let me wrap up, right? And just remember, we have one life. We have one life, and my goal is to guide on how to make that life completely divine-tastical, how to instill divine-tastical living in your life. And let me just say before I close that divine-tastical living is all about being the artisan of your life. It's about orchestrating and co-creating your life in the image of you, in what you think. And you see, over the next few weeks, you're going to see me playing around with just how I do that for myself so that I can connect my personality with the divinity I have within. And one of the things I shared early on and worth repeating is I see myself, I'm really very comfortable with nomad or gypsy type um, vibes. And I want to bring that together with my exterior aspects. And you can see me doing that by kind of taking in a different look and playing around, and it'll start to come out over the next couple more weeks. And I'll love your feedback, but it will be me coming into my own and my own growth and my own acceptance, because that's a major one, is my own acceptance. So really, on that note, um, I will close down for the night and humbly thank you for all the listeners, all the conversations. Thank you so much. And as we go into the final seconds, I bid you all a absolutely wonderful good night. And you'll see me here again on December 10th. Ciao. Stay blessed and stay thankful. Good night. And just as I look to close off, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.